Hey y'all, welcome into this edition of Off the Front Porch, our weekly podcast exploring the Southern experience. My name is Tony Ballman. Thank you for tagging along out here along the dirt roads and highways of the American South. On these adventures, we pull over, pause, sit a while with curious characters, poke around places of uncommon beauty and engaging history and lore, and we take part in special events that remind us that there's something so very special about being Southern. Well, today we have landed in an area of South Carolina called Ridge. It is a region known, mostly for its peach fields and antique shops and small town festivals usually centered on all things peaches. We're in the heart of the Ridge, in the village of Ridge Spring, and we're having lunch in a spot that is absolutely the definition of destination dining. It's called Juniper, led by Chef Brandon Veely. And we are sitting down for a low-key shrimp and grits lunch with a man whose eye for Southern culture and flair for words has made him one of the freshest and most original literary voices in the American South. He is an author of 14 books, thousands of features and columns covering life in the South. And he is a sought-after speaker for his ability to comfortably weave tales of Southern people and their exploits. And I am pleased that he has graciously agreed to come on and sit down with me today for a little lunch on this edition of Off the Front Porch. My guest, writer, storyteller, photographer, Tom Poland. Thank you, Tom, for sitting down to lunch with me. If the audience hears us smacking, it's only because it's good.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me here very much.
Well, it's an absolute privilege to have you here. Let's start off a little bit and give folks some background on you and where you're from and how you landed in the world of writing.
Well, I grew up in Lincoln, Georgia, which is on the state line near McCormick, Edgefield area. I went to the University of Georgia for 2 degrees, one in journalism, one in media, which involved cinematography, video, recording, and all the things that go into the audio-visual world, as they used to call it. And a couple of courses shy of completing my master's degree, my department chairman sent me to Columbia for 6 months to replace a professor who had left the college, and he taught a course they had to have to graduate, so I went over for 6 months. It was just going to be a 6-month assignment. And it turned out to be 4 years. I completed my degree going back and forth to Athens. And then South Carolina Wildlife Magazine came calling, and I got a job in the film unit as a cinematographer and scriptwriter. Excuse me. And I did that for about, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 4 years, I think. And I ended up going over to the magazine where I was managing editor and a feature writer.
You were managing editor of the South, which is one of the most recognized and one of the most, I would say, one of the most awarded outdoor magazines anywhere.
In those days, it was a consistent winner of the ACI awards. I read a report about it recently. Said it was embarrassingly dominating the whole country. It was on a level in those days with something like Arizona Highways.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful magazine, great photography, and that's where I met Robert Clark, who we became good friends, and left about the same time with a book contract in our hand.
Uh-huh.
And that was, like you say, 14 books or so ago. But my time at South Carolina Wildlife was the most meaningful job I ever had. I was very young. I left when I was 29 when they hired me. I was 37 when I left. And all these years later, all these other jobs later, I still gravitate back to those years as being a real strong influence in my work and my life.
How could it not be? I mean, again, you're traveling all over South Carolina. Yeah. You're writing about things. I mean, if you can talk about South Carolina and history, you can talk about South Carolina and politics, but South Carolina, in my estimation, has unmatched beauty. And what you guys did at South Carolina Wildlife always, to me, represented, it was our National Geographic.
Well, there was a guy named John Kohler who put it on the map, and he was a Georgian like I am, and he died not too long ago. John hired me, along with a fellow named Billy Durant, And I wasn't sure what I was going to end up doing there, but as writing goes and as having a unique voice, writing scripts for narrators to read so that the general public could hear my words instead of read them made a big difference in my approach to writing. When you hear the words, it's quite different than reading them. And when you hear them, that means you can bring into a play things like dramatic pauses, incomplete sentences and phrases. We don't talk in complete sentences. Human beings don't talk in complete sentences, at least not in English. And so I incorporate that in my work, and it gives me sort of a nice cadence and flow, a rhythm that's been called conversational.
I will absolutely say that. I mean, when I read your work, and I'm a follower on Substack, and I love the work that you do, and I read your column, it is conversational, it's relaxed, it is like sitting on the back porch with a friend and talking about what you just saw. And
that's right.
You are very deliberate about those sentence fragments and those dramatic pauses and things like that. And it makes it such a joy to read.
Right. I learned in script writing and film that what you don't say can matter as much as what you do say. So, the dramatic pause, a little time to reflect. I still do that. And of course, it would drive English teachers out of their mind.
Oh, yeah. I think your writing and my writing both would probably, if we sent it back to our high school English teachers, they would we could come back with lots of red marks.
They say, you can't do that. I said, well, I just did. And of course, ultimately, when I write something, and of course, it depends on how much time I have, I don't like to be rushed. Ultimately, the person I'm writing it for is me. It's me.
Yeah.
If I feel like it reads like I want it to, it has the feeling I want, and it flows like I want, hopefully accurate, I try to make sure I'm accurate, then I'm pretty happy with it. And I figure if I'm happy with it, other people will be too.
And a lot of people are happy with it. Your column appears in, 60-plus newspapers?
Something like that. It depends on who picks it up whenever they pick it up. I think if I nailed it down to about a core, there'd be about 40, 45 newspapers that run it every week. Some run it twice a week. Just a few run it twice a week.
Now, are you deliberate about going out and finding the subject matter that you're going to write about, or does it just happen? Because as a reader, and I hope this is a compliment because it's intended as such, as a reader, it reads like you just happened upon this.
That's often the case.
Really?
That's often the case. My photography drives a lot of it, the back road explorations. You'll see an old building, an old country store, an abandoned cemetery, natural areas like Anthony Shoals over in Wilkes, Lincoln, Elbert County, which is a great colony of rocky shoal spider lilies there, bald eagles and osprey. And then sometimes a memory comes up and fuels what I do, like today. I was thinking about back in the times when I was a kid. With no money, I've walked the roads around where I grew up and pick up Coke bottles and cash them in for deposit and save a little bit of that money. I bought a baseball glove and a transistor radio by earning money I picked up with Coke bottles. And when I say Coke bottles, I refer to all bottles as Coke bottles.
Yes.
I don't use the words pop or soda. That's not me. That's kind of those words are foreign to a Southerner.
Yeah. It's all the way. And a lot of times it's Coca-Cola.
A Coca-Cola, a Coke. My granddaddy called them a dope because, as we all know, they used to have cocaine in them.
Yeah.
That's how they got the name.
Right.
That's back in the day.
And you said that your photographies oftentimes will drive the column. There was one recently. It was a magnificent statuary in a cemetery, and of an angel, I guess. And you told a magnificent story about why the statuary was designed the way it was.
Hearts of Stone. I mentioned Tom Wolfe in there. Look Homeward Angel. And Robert Clark took that photograph, and he told me he took it right here in the Ridge Spring Cemetery.
Oh, really?
But I just looked in that cemetery driving by real quick, and I did not see an angel, so I'm wondering if that's correct.
Well, and there's another one down here, I think.
Well, so it could be another cemetery then.
There, but I think when I saw that, I was like, wow, wait a second, I've seen that statue somewhere. But So that will inform you. You'll take a photo and then you'll
Yeah.
go from there and write the column.
That kind of goes back to my script writing days. We always had images in mind.
Mm-hmm.
When I applied for that job, something like 80 people applied for it. And they narrowed it down to 3 people. And each of us, the 3 of us, had to write a 15-minute script on the natural history of the eastern brown pelican. Well, I spent a lot of time researching all that. And my boss-to-be, when he said, when I read your script, I knew you could write. It was very good. He said, but I also knew you'd never made a film before in wildlife circles because you were calling for shots we'd never get. He said, we just go out and shoot and shoot and shoot, and then we write the script of what we get. And that's how it works. So I still like to have an image to write to. And it gives somebody something to look at as well when they read my words,
Talk about your book. I mean, what you said you left South Carolina Wildlife with a book contract in hand. What was your first entry into the world of writing long form?
It was really interesting. James Dickey wrote the foreword for it, and
that's pretty good company, Tom.
Very good company. And I might point out he's a Georgian also. Sometimes I joke that they sent Georgians over here to improve the culture. That's just a joke. Dickey was friends with Steve Bennett. Steve Bennett worked at DNR, and he's a herpetologist, and he's a very, very knowledgeable fellow, the plants, animals, everything. He went to the University of Georgia. And so he and Robert and I did a book called South Carolina, the Natural Heritage. And the premise of that book was, if the European colonists had never set foot on South Carolina, this is what some of the habitat would look like.
Ooh.
So we had, remnant native habitat areas that were unspoiled, and that's what we did, and it sold out. USC Press came to me and Robert, because by this time we had left the agency, and said, you guys got another book in mind, just tell us what it is, we'll probably do it. And so we did what really was a backroad book in 1990, 94. It was South Carolina, A Timeless Journey.
Oh, okay.
In which we photographed churches, barefoot farmers plowing with mules, things like that. And so that led to 2 more books, and that led to another book, and it just kept. I think I'm coming to the end of the book road because I really enjoy the 620 words or so features on Substack and columns in newspapers, because it's a good short distance to travel. Readers don't get intimidated by a lot of column length and all that. And you can say a lot in 620 words if you're careful.
Writer to writer, that is something I still struggle with, because I cut my teeth as an investigative writer, as somebody who write these Sunday pieces, and so it's hard for me to sit down and not write 1,000 words. And so and I'm writing on Substack as well. And so it's hard for me to kind of say, you got to dial it back, Bauman. You got to dial it back, because we're in the age of the 4-second attention span.
That's true. People don't seem to want to read something long anymore. I still like a long magazine feature, but the old expression, less is more.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Most people overwrite. You got to learn to be your own editor. If you go back into a sentence, you'll sometimes see 2 sentences that are neighbors. You can cut the head off one and the tail off the other and marry them with a change of a verb or 2 and have a much stronger, better sentence that's less words involved.
You really are a continued student of the craft, aren't you? Because you've written some stuff. You have written some stuff on your Substack about, are you a writer? You've actually asked that question, and I've read that, and it's like, wow, maybe Tom Poland's got me thinking about myself as a writer.
Well, I do mention techniques sometimes, and one of the things I talked about the other day was texture.
Yeah.
And fragrance, smells, and the way things feel. Most people gloss over that. They think about the senses, what you hear and what you see, and possibly what you taste. But the smell, the sense of smell and the sense of texture and touch are very important things to add to your work, I think. So you add it all together. And writing is one of the few areas they say as you get older, you get better because you've accumulated more skill. and more content, and marrying them together, you have more to say.
More life experience.
Supposedly.
I mean, so much of what I read of yours is informed by, I can see it and say, this is a man who has lived, because it's the way you write. The way you write is, you write with someone who has so much experience in the world, and it gives you credibility.
Well, I tell you, being a Southerner has helped me. That's one reason Chuck Leavell with the Rolling Stones,
oh, of course, yeah,
formerly Allman Brothers, sort of handpicked me to co-write his memoir with him, which I'm coming to the end on it pretty soon.
Really?
I'm right at 80,000 words now, I think, 80,250. And that's been a lot of fun, you know, because I like music. I like the South, of course, and he's a Southern boy out of Alabama. He's had a great life also, so it's fun to do things like that.
I had no idea that was a project. I mean, I'm a huge Chuck Leavell fan.
I've been working on it almost 3 years now.
I just got back a few weeks ago from Macon. I went down and revisited Capricorn. I had been down before Mercer went in and did the revitalization of Capricorn. And then I went down recently, sat down with Larry Brumley of Mercer and talked about what that place has become again. And it's interesting you mentioned Chuck Leavell, because his Hammond B3 is sitting right there in Studio A, and it was almost like I was standing there and there was an aura around that Hammond B3 and I was standing there in Capricorn.
That is holy ground, hallowed ground. That's where Southern rock came to be.
Yes.
I was just writing about that this last week or two in his book. The piano that he played Jessica on was there. It was the Steinway. But when everything fell apart for both the Allman Brothers and Phil Walden, Capricorn started bleeding red ink. That Steinway hit the auction block. I don't think he knows where it is to this day.
Oh, no.
But it was very important to me to see the studio, and Chuck took me there. We walked through it together. And I remember standing in what they call the live room where the band had played, thinking, this is where that music I heard in 1973 that kept me going through what was a tough year. I lost everything I had to a tornado in Athens, Georgia.
Oh, no.
I had a marriage that was falling apart, and music sort of kept me going, and I felt like I was right where it took place. Then I went in the control room and sat there for a while, and I met a wonderful guy named Paul Hornsby. Paul Hornsby engineered, directed Marshall Tucker Band out of Spartanburg. And he and I are going to talk about doing something about Marshall Tucker a little bit. It won't be a book, it'll be a feature.
Well, Chuck Leavell is a dream guest for my podcast, so if you put in a good word for me, I appreciate it.
Let's see what I can do.
Yeah, all right. So, since we're talking about Southern culture, you're such a gifted writer. Do you ever feel like by writing about Southern culture exclusively, pretty much, that you pigeonhole yourself as being a quote-unquote Southern writer?
Well, probably I do, but I don't really care.
There you go.
I can probably write about most anything. Look, in my life, I've had these jobs as a writer for corporations and state government and other places. It was very demeaning at times. Mm-hmm. People treat you like you're just a nobody, like you're just a hired hand that sweeps the floor out at the end of the day. And I didn't like it. I've never liked working for anybody. I added up the years not too long ago. I've worked more years on my own as an independent journalist, freelance writer, than I have working for companies with benefits and that kind of thing. You see, my grandfather told me once, he said, if you can make money for the man, you can make it for yourself. My father was self-employed. Both of my granddaddies were self-employed. And so that's the way I like to roll.
This is timely advice, because I just stepped out in faith, and this whole project here and my work on Substack really is me trying to live life on my own terms as a storyteller. And so to hear you say that is very empowering to me.
Right.
But it's interesting. I read a column of yours, I guess it dropped a few weeks ago, where you were talking about you don't go into a construction site and you say that here's my latest sonnet.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, sometimes writers don't get the respect for this being work.
Well, yeah, a lot of people consider writing as something like a dabbling. It's something you're really not serious about. It's just a pastime. But if you approach it with the right mindset, it's all consuming. It's just about all you want to do. And
right.
It takes the time to succeed. It takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. What's your discipline like as a writer? Are you one of these people that has to have a specific amount of time every day that you write, or is it just kind of organic?
My life is writing. I get up about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I got the coffee going. I work to 6 o'clock every day.
Really?
Unless I'm traveling or doing something like this. I've got 4 or 5 projects ongoing at all times. I might be on assignment for a magazine feature. I've got the columns I'm doing. I have my personal favorites I want to get on Substack that I do. So it takes a lot of time to do all that. And I kind of follow what James Dickey told me once. I was at his house and he had 7 typewriters all through the house. Each one had paper rolled up in it. And he told me he had 7 projects going on at one time and that they would cross-pollinate each other. It's something he was writing over here in a poem might have something to bear on this novel that he's writing. I don't think he did a lot of magazine features. He did some essays, but he was always involved and, of course, surrounded by stacks of books.
And, of course, he's very, very famous for Deliverance.
Deliverance, which is kind of a bad thing for him in a way because most people associated him with Deliverance and the squeal like a pig comment, which was not in the movie, not in this book. But he's really known for his poetry.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not the kind of poetry you think of like Roses are Red, Violets are Blue. It's free verse, really innovative. Looking for the Buckhead Boys is a great poem about a man who's in his middle ages and going back and trying to find one person he went to high school with or played football with. If he could just find one person, he would feel like he's young again. Cherry Log Road is about a man who has an affair with a junkyard owner's daughter. And it's really interesting, too. It's got a great ending to it where he ends the poem saying he's wild to be wreckage forever as he roars off on his motorcycle. So I love the man. Most people like to kick him around these days, not me. I'll never kick him around.
I don't, to be perfectly honest, I think if you appreciate literature for literature's sake, who in the world is going to kick around James Dickey?
Well, they do. Plenty of them do. But, the other thing about today being a writer is the climate's changed so much. All this political correctness and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Golly. It's very bothersome to me as a person who takes a lot of pains to select the right word. Mm-hmm. And if you start peppering your work with politically correct language, then it loses all its color and atmosphere. It becomes meaningless. It's just a waste of time.
I don't think you can write Southern or write about the South and be overly politically correct.
Well, I'll get in trouble for saying this.
I hope not.
But one of the terms we see a lot today is African American, which is a totally inaccurate word. It's not a perfect fit. It's imprecise. There are people whose ancestors were slaves that were not from Africa. They came from other sources.
Sure.
And so it's kind of it makes people feel better, but it's very imprecise.
But again, I think in that particular case, and I've interviewed a number of black artists, Jonathan Green being one of them, that it's empowering for the black community to embrace the word black and to embrace it as a part of their culture. So that's one of those areas that I think when you get into semantics and it's you're right. We live in a very politically correct world, and everything is so politically charged.
Right. It's become a blanket term for anyone whose ancestors were slaves, but it's not there are people who are really African Americans. I know one. He naturally came from Western Africa and was naturalized a U.S. citizen. So I don't worry about it, and I don't mean anything ill.
No, I
or
know you don't, of course.
But as far as a writer goes, and using words with precision, that's where I have a problem with it.
You're at the stage in your life now where you, I'm not saying this just to inflate your head, but you're an old master, if you will, of the craft of writing now. But you've mentioned Dickey so many times. Who would you say, in terms of writers, had the greatest influence on you as a writer? Now that somebody is now that you're somebody who is, I'd go insofar as to say legendary, Tom.
Well, I don't know about that. I would say several writers have really had a hand in my life. Harry Cruz from Bacon County, Georgia, was what I call a blue-collar writer. That is, he didn't care about fancy things and fancy people. He wrote about the harsh realities of life, of being poor, a sharecropper's son, and some of the violent things that happen in life. James Salter is just the opposite. He was from New York and had connections in Colorado. He was a beautiful writer, did a memoir called Burning the Days, which is one of the best books I've ever read. I used to travel with it everywhere I'd go for about 10 years, just to have it near me. Cormac McCarthy is a genius of a writer, and I had a direct connection with him. His brother Dennis and I are friends. Dennis did a book called The Gospel According to Billy the Kid, a novel. And Cormac and I, independent of each other, helped him revise and suggested edits and things for that book. I had a chance to meet him. They invited me out years ago, but I'm not a fan of flying. I don't like to fly, and so I passed up on that. And I kind of regret it because he's gone now. But there's a writer that just, anytime you need inspiration, say, Google, what would Cormac McCarthy say about a thunderstorm? And read his work. It's unbelievable.
And again, these are names that don't necessarily float to the top of the fountain of great writers, but what I get from you is I get that you value authentic writers.
Well, I do. I like writers who've made it to the mountaintop. Okay? Mm-hmm. James Dickey told me once that most really good writers never make much in the way of money. It's always the people who profit off of current trends. And like, if you could go write a book about that girl, the rock star Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, yeah.
Taylor Swift, you got a seller there, And I like writers who incorporate their life into their work, because, like McCarthy, for example, said, if you don't write about death, you're not a serious writer, because what else is there to think about except that you won't live forever? And I think that's a good point he makes.
Wow. All right, we'll segue out of that because we're getting close to the end of our time.
We ain't talked about moonshine yet.
We ain't talking about moonshine yet. Maybe we're going to come back and do another episode, Tom. But you like moonshine?
No, I had my own brand for a while because I wrote a story about my grandfather in Poland who was a moonshiner.
Yeah.
And he was famous back home in Georgia for two things. He made the best moonshine in the county according to the field hands. And he was the county's finest cusser.
Okay.
He could cuss better than anybody you ever heard. And so that ended up coming out in a moonshine out of Edgefield called Finest Cussers.
Yeah.
Moonshine
at the distillery.
Yeah, Carolina Moon Distillery, when it was operating, sold it for $30 a jar.
I wish I could get my hands on some of that.
Well, it's not out there now, but I've got some empty jars if you ever want to fill it up with something.
Well, you talked about the end of life, as it were. What do you want your legacy to be as a writer? Do you ever think about legacy, Tom?
I think about what I'll put on my tombstone. And it might be something like this. He made the world a better place. Something like that.
You really want to feel like you made the world a better place with your writing?
Well, I think I've tried to be real in what I cover and not be politically motivated or anything like that. I don't care if people don't like my work. I like it. as James Dickey said, it's good enough for me.
And this has been better than good enough for me. I have enjoyed this conversation.
Okay.
Tom Poland,
Thank you.
Southern Writer, and in a uniquely Southern restaurant having a uniquely Southern meal. How was your shrimp and grits?
It's great.
Okay.
Are we done?
We're almost done.
Okay.
I just want to tell everybody that you can check out the video of this on my YouTube channel. You can listen to this on all of your major platforms, of course. If you're listening to it on Substack, you can also share it out on Apple Podcasting and Spotify. Check out the photos and things on our Facebook page, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. With the writer, Tom Poland, this has been such a fantastic show, and I look forward to talking with you next time right here
Thank
on
you.
The Front Porch.